77 WABC.
This is Greg Buttle, and you're listening to the Bernie and Sid Show, which really should be the Bernie Buttle and Sid Show, or the Buttle, Bernie and Sid Show, but Sid is last, no matter what.
She'll stand at the teleprompter, she'll spin around a couple of times, always a very short speech. Then she gets off the stage, she goes back home, she goes to sleep.
Back on Bernie and Sid on 77 WABC. That was Donald Trump. Yeah, maybe sounding a little prescient, to use that word.
Very good
two
word.
2 times in 1 hour.
Excellent usage of the word.
Yes, indeed. And our guest, Sid, on the line, without further ado, is from CNN. He's their medical correspondent.
Chief medical correspondent.
Chief medical correspondent.
He's the man.
And he's a neurosurgeon.
He's really smart, bro. That's all I can say.
He could run for president.
He could.
Ben Carson did. Why not?
Why not Sanjay Gupta?
Why not President Gupta?
This is the best introduction I've ever received.
Why not? You're brilliant. I mean, we see you on CNN all the time, and you're young and you're good looking.
You got it all.
Well, wow, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not sure I'm jumping into the race anytime soon, but I appreciate that.
Well, you're healthy, too. I mean, we know that Hillary's not feeling all that well. We have no idea what's going on with Donald Trump. At least I know with you, Sanjay, you're feeling pretty good.
I feel good. Yeah, I feel good. Try and take good care of myself. Practice what I preach.
There you go. So let's get to before we get to the political side of this whole thing, let's talk about Hillary. If, in fact, she has nothing else besides the pneumonia, right? 68 years old. It's a hot day. It's a humid day. She's got pneumonia. That would explain why she, fainted yesterday. So if there's nothing else going on with her, then what we saw yesterday makes sense, yes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, there's a lot of people who when you over the age of 65, for example, the likelihood of developing pneumonia goes up a bit. It's still not necessarily a common thing. It wasn't a particularly hot day, from what I understand, outside at the time, but it was warm enough. If you hadn't had enough fluids, that could be a problem. She's also on various medications, including antihistamine medications, which you think about medications like Benadryl, they can make you quite sedate as well. So perhaps in a combination of things, you can piece this all together. We still don't know everything, though. We don't know how serious this pneumonia is, or what type of pneumonia, or exactly how it's being treated. But to answer your question, yes, you could piece that all together.
Now, we just had Congressman King on, Dr. Sanjay Gupta on the Bernie and Sid show, and he said that it was unusual or odd that in his mind that they didn't, instead of taking her to a hospital, they took her to Chelsea Clinton's apartment, which to him seemed irresponsible at the very least.
Well, I think I'm speaking more as a doctor here, but I think doctors like to sort of move under the sort of auspices of an abundance of caution. You want to leave no stone unturned. Many people have seen the video. She was clearly having a lot of trouble getting into the van, didn't seem to have her balance, may have been having low blood pressure or something which caused that. But out of an abundance of caution, I think getting checked out right away would have been a good idea, even if it were just basic EKG, check your blood pressure.
So you agree with Congressman King's assessment?
Yeah, I think, get checked out. That's regardless, forget that you're Hillary Clinton, forget that you're running for president. Anybody that has a sort of unexplained or unusual event like that should get checked out.
Well, what we know about Hillary, and again, there's always a question about whether what they're telling us is entirely true, partly true, talking about the Clinton campaign. Here's what we know. We know she had a blood clot issue a couple of years ago. She had 2 blood clots, right? We know that she broke her elbow once, going back to 2012. And then we know about the fall and the concussion a couple of years after that. It's hardly a long list of serious illnesses and or injuries that she's got, yet there seems to be this misconception or consensus, if you will, from the right, that she's very, very sick, hiding something very, very bad. From what we know, that's not the case, right?
No, I don't think that's the case. And look, you even though there should be no diagnosing from afar by doctors or by anybody else, she has had a very grueling, 18 months. We've seen her on, doing all kinds of events all the time. So, you do get a sense that this isn't a person who's in some sort of health crisis by any means. And as you point out, dating back to 98, when she had a blood clot in her leg, she's talked about that. And then obviously the concussion that she had back in 2012. So we know all that stuff. So I don't think there's any indication that there's some hidden health crisis here. I think the concern really was that, you had this episode happen on Sunday and then come to find out on Friday she had been diagnosed with pneumonia, which is a serious diagnosis, very treatable, but still a serious diagnosis.
And this a couple of days after the coughing fit, which also threw people into a tizzy about her health a couple of days before that.
That's right, and she said it was allergies at that time. It sounds like from reading her doctor's note yesterday now that, in fact, that probably was either the beginnings or she was in the throes of pneumonia at the time. That's why she eventually didn't end up getting checked out. But I think it's just a question of, even after she had this episode on Sunday morning, what we hear is that she was overheated. She was overheated and left the event because of that. I don't know. And then it was several hours later when we hear she had pneumonia. It was a little bit of a dribs and drabs of information coming out, and still incomplete information at that.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, you mentioned the blood clot in her leg. That was deep vein thrombosis, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Which, by the way, killed a 39-year-old NBC reporter in Iraq. He had the same thing.
Right, David Bloom.
David Bloom, and she also suffers from something called hypothyroidism. I heard you mention that yesterday on CNN, of course. So now the question is, the symptoms, the rumors, and I hate to speculate, but this is the major rumor going around, that these are symptoms of maybe Parkinson's disease. Am I wrong or right?
I mean, I see no evidence that she has Parkinson's disease. I've heard those rumors as well. I don't know how they're piecing that together or why. I mean, one thing about Parkinson's disease is that there's a lot of physically noticeable symptoms, and one of them being a tremor, one of them being a difficulty with your gait, the way that you walk. One being sort of you lose the ability to have expression on your face. There's all sorts of different signs and symptoms of Parkinson's. I'm not entirely sure where that's coming from, but I've heard that along with a lot of other sort of theories out there that don't seem to have any basis.
Last one. I know that these presidential races, usually from both candidates, we see some pretty extensive medical tests and results. We get to see that as the voters. We've seen really neither from either one of these candidates. How surprised are you about that?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I've been doing this for quite a while. I will tell you, back in 2004, for example, you had George W. Bush and John Kerry running, and the public really didn't care that much. They thought, these are both seemingly healthy guys. There's not a big concern here. In 2008, you had John McCain running, Senator McCain, and he actually allowed a few reporters, I was one of them, to come and examine his medical records for several hours. He didn't want to release them publicly, but he allowed us to examine his medical records, and that was pretty forthright. I'm not that surprised by what we've seen so far with just the letters that we've gotten from Mr. Trump and Mrs. Clinton's campaigns. There's no law, there's no sort of anything that mandates that they release anything more. They don't have to. I think this is really going to come down to what the public feels is the right to know. What should we know about the guy or gal who's going to become the commander-in-chief?
Absolutely. Dr. Sanjay Gupta from CNN. If she drops out, we want you to throw your surgical mask in the ring.
You're our guy.
Or Gupta 2020. That's what I'm saying. Hey, listen, thank you for appearing with Bernie and Sid on WABC, Dr. Gupta.
Pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
So there he is, Dr. Gupta on Bernie and Sid. Back after this.
77 WABC. Traffic and Transit.